two young men went to school and learned it was okay to hate. Because of them, my son is dead. I'm Judy Shepard. Isn't it time to teach our kids something new?
To make a difference, take action today at teachrespect.com.
Witam serdecznie, słychać mnie dobrze? Tak. Witam serdecznie, nazywam się Mariusz Kurz i mam zaszczyt prowadzić dzisiejsze spotkanie. Dzięki gościnności Fundacji Batorego i dzięki zaproszeniu kampanii przeciw homofobii oraz ambasadzie Stanów Zjednoczonych w Polsce mamy przyjemność dziś gościć Judy i Dennisa Shepardów. Witamy. Judy i Dennis są rodzicami Matta Sheparda. Matt Shepard, jak pewnie wielu z Państwa wie, był gejem, miał 21 lat, gdy 6 października 1998 roku został pobity do nieprzytomności. Nie odzyskał już nigdy tej przytomności i kilka dni później zmarł. 12 października 1998 roku. Już niecałe 2 miesiące później, Judy pewnie mnie poprawi, jeśli coś pomyliłem, ale chyba 1 grudnia 1998 roku, czyli w dzień, który byłby 22 urodzinami Matthew, Judy i Dennis postanowili założyć fundację Matthew Sheparda. Fundacja działa do dziś i ma główne 3 cele. Edukować na temat równości osób LGBT w Stanach Zjednoczonych, a teraz już i również poza granicami Stanów Zjednoczonych. Promować równościowe postawy wśród młodych osób, wśród uczniów i próbować zastopować, wyeliminować nienawiść, homofobiczną nienawiść, z którą niestety mamy do czynienia nie tylko w Stanach Zjednoczonych, ale i w wielu innych miejscach na świecie, również w Polsce. Judy w wielu wywiadach i w książce, którą publikowała kilka lat temu, książka nazywa się The Meaning of Matthew Shepard, napisała, że od czasu śmierci swojego syna Matta nienawidzi października. Nienawidzi października, bo jest to miesiąc, w którym jej syn został zabity. Ale 28 października 2009 roku to nie był zły dzień, mimo że to był październik. To był dzień, w którym prezydent Barack Obama podpisał ustawę o przeciwdziałaniu przestępstwom z nienawiści. Ustawa ma w tytule imię i nazwisko Matthew Sheparda. Nazywa się po prostu ustawą Matthew Sheparda. Chciałbym zapytać, Judy, co wtedy czułaś, gdy stałaś obok prezydenta Baracka Obamy, a on podpisywał ustawę?
It was an amazing feeling of relief and accomplishment, happiness, a feeling that finally what happened to Matt was going to have a meaning that would last forever, that would take care of his peers and those coming up behind him. It took a long time. Persistence really was the key. Congress was so sick of seeing my face. I think they thought we'd just sign it and get rid of her. So it was wonderful, and President Obama was so kind and generous and warm to Dennis and Logan and I when he signed the bill. It was truly wonderful.
Ale to zabrało Ci 11 lat, tak? To było długich 11 lat? It took you 11 years. Was it long for you?
Yeah.
Too long, short?
It was 11 years after Matthew's death, but they'd been working on the bill a few years before that. A hate crime bill existed to protect race, religion, and ethnicity, largely due to the Civil Rights Act of the 60s in the U.S. And now we were trying to include gender identity, sexual orientation and the perception of both, as well as gender and disability. So it was, you know, it was very cool. The whole thing was wonderful.
A po co w ogóle w systemie prawnym jest takie pojęcie jak hate crime, czyli przestępstwo z nienawiści? W czasie, gdy Matt był zamordowany, takiego prawa w stanie Wyoming, w którym on mieszkał, nie było. I w Polsce zresztą w tej chwili też nie ma żadnych tego typu praw. Nie ma czegoś takiego jak przestępstwo z nienawiści ze względu na orientację seksualną.
Well, a crime is a crime, which is one of the arguments against having any hate crime laws at all. Many people feel you've committed a crime, you've committed a crime. That's all there is to it. But really, a hate crime is meant to terrorize, excuse me, not just the members, not just the individual, but all the members of his community. One hate crime committed against a gay individual intimidates, frightens, terrorizes all members of the gay community, and not even locally, but nationally or even internationally, as well as the victim's family. So it's not just directed at one person, it's directed at the collective of folks, if you will. When Matt was killed, we got hundreds of thousands of emails from folks around the world, most actually probably, from the gay community saying they knew, they understood that such an act could have happened to them any moment in time where they lived, which is the importance of the hate crime. It sets it apart based on the intent of the crime, which is not solely against the individual, but what the individual represents.
Wielu rodziców, którzy mają synów gejów albo córki lesbijki, nie decydują się jednak walczyć o prawa swoich dzieci. Co spowodowało, że wy i Judy i Dennis zaczęliście tak aktywnie i z takim sukcesem o te prawa walczyć? Co było tym impulsem, że potrafiliście wydostać się z rozpaczy po stracie Matta i zacząć działać?
Well, we knew we had a moment of time, a window of opportunity to maybe make a difference because Matt's story was in the press all the time. And if we could talk to parents and let them know how we loved and accepted Matt regardless of his sexual orientation. He was our son first and foremost. He was not our gay son, he was our son who happened to be gay. That perhaps we could help families adjust or recognize, welcome their own members of their family who were gay. And we had this opportunity we didn't think was going to last very long, so we wanted to take advantage of every minute we had to talk about accepting Matt, and as long as our voice was in the press, we thought maybe we would have some influence. Plus, it was an opportunity to actually help Matt's friends still, to be a part of Matt's life, to still be connected to his community, his friends.
Wiem, że dzisiaj spotkaliście się z polskimi rodzicami gejów i lesbijek i wiem, że nie było wśród tych osób ojców. Było 9 mam, 1 babcia i 1 brat, jeśli dobrze pamiętam. Dennis jako ojciec syna geja jesteś kimś wyjątkowym, bo potrafisz o tym mówić publicznie. Dlaczego ojcom jest trudniej niż matkom?
It has to do with the image. I grew up just like I will just say without knowing that it has to do with the image. Fathers are supposed to be the tough, the unemotional member of the family. They're not supposed to cry. They're not supposed to say I love you to their children. They're not supposed to hug them in public. And it's, in the United States we call it the cowboy image. You're tough. If you fall down and get hurt, just get up and rub a little dirt in it and go on about your business. It's not the way it should be. Until Matt's death, my father had never said to me, son, I love you. and he was a construction worker, an oil field worker, a farm kid. He grew up the same way I was raised. You do not say those things. It's assumed, but there's nothing vocal or physical where you give each other a hug. And I regret that all these years. I think it's something that we need to start eliminating. Fathers are proud of their children, or they should be proud of their children, and they need to let them know that by giving them that hug, by telling them that they care, and showing them that they care.
A pamiętasz dzień, w którym Matt zrobił coming out i powiedział ci, że jest gejem?
It was, well, we have to go back in time. Thank you, dear. We have to go back in time a little bit. Matt had called Judy and told her, Mom, I'm gay, but please don't tell Dad. And she promised she wouldn't. And then she immediately told me. Which was, I have to say, smart. Thank you, dear. In that I may have known, but I didn't really know. It gave me a chance to decide myself how I was going to act, what I was going to say if he ever came to me. So one night, he said, Dad, I'd like to talk to you in private. I have something important to tell you. So I said, okay. So we went out to the kitchen. It was just the two of us. And you could tell he was nervous. And I had an idea what it was about. And he said, Dad, this is really important. I said, okay. What is it? He said, Dad, I'm gay. I said, okay. So what's the important thing that you want to tell me? And you could see him go. He had so built up in his mind, I think, that he was going to start yelling and screaming, throwing chairs, throwing him out of the house. He used to be an actor, so he had all this in his mind anyway. You know, like, I can be a poor and orphaned actor out on the streets. Never happened. He was still my son. That was the important thing. My disappointment was I wanted grandchildren. And then I got to thinking, well, you can still have grandchildren these days. You're not losing out on that opportunity. And you still have Matt to make memories with. Look at all the families who've lost a child either through automobile accidents, through sickness, or even through war. That child is no longer there. And I still had mine to make memories for him and for myself.
Dzięki. Dennis, czy to prawda, może coś pomyliłam, ale czy to prawda, że na pogrzebie Matta miałeś na sobie kamizelkę kuloodporną?
When we arrived in the United States, we flew into Minneapolis, Minnesota to pick up our younger son, Logan. We had told him that Matt had been in an accident. He was in serious condition. And to bring a suit, we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we found out about the media. He was all over the internet, TV, newspaper, magazines. So then we flew on to Denver and we were told halfway by the flight attendant, when you get to the front of the plane, do not leave. took us down a jetway to the side. We didn't go out into the main concourse because of all the media. So they took us around, we got all the luggage, snuck out with Judy's brother and my brother were there with vehicles. This is all leading up to your... Then we go meet at a convenience store away from the hospital because of all the media. We had to sneak into the hospital. So we're in the hospital. Our focus was on Matt. We saw nobody. We talked to no media. We did nothing like that. And we got to, after Matt passed away, we went on to Casper, Wyoming, where we live. We were in a hotel room, security. From the hospital, they volunteered to come up on their own. But the media did not bother us. And just before the services, funeral services for Matt, we had decided to have a press conference to talk about everything. Originally, Judy was going to go out with me, and then she changed her mind, and I was going to go out by myself. I said, not a problem. And the police said, you are not going out there without a bulletproof vest. I said, what? So we don't know what is going on. We have SWAT teams at the church. We have bomb-sniffing dogs in the church. We have protesters outside the church. We don't know what may happen to you. So before they would let me go out there, I had to put on a bulletproof vest. It just freaked out the police because at the last moment, Judy went out with me. And she had no bulletproof vest, which is okay because her insurance was paid out. But that is the history behind that. We talked to the press. We thanked them for the courtesy that they gave us in not trying to get into the hospital rooms or even in the hotel rooms while we were making preparations to say goodbye to Matt. But they were so paranoid that I couldn't understand it then. I still can't understand now that people would have such hate that you need to wear a bulletproof vest to talk to the press before you say goodbye to your son.
Ja słyszałem też o plakatach, na których były napisy na przykład No Tears for Queers, czyli bez łez dla cioty, tak? Tak to można przetłumaczyć. Co to byli za ludzie?
Are you asking me or Judy?
You.
I think they're put up by paranoid people who are afraid of losing their place in society. They have been brought up that it's a sin to love someone of the same sex, that you can be cured, but you can't be. It's biological. It's not a choice. It's a way for them to be a bully. It's a way for them to be a bully anonymously. They just put up the poster. No one can go up and point to them and say, you did that. Why? They don't have to justify their actions. They're cowards. Pure and simple. I'm not a coward. I'm proud of my son. I'll say it to anybody, anywhere, at any time. You don't see them doing that.
Dzięki. Matt był otwartym gejem, nie tylko zrobił coming out w stosunku do swoich rodziców, ale był po prostu otwarcie, nie ukrywającym swojej seksualności gejem. I w Laramie, gdzie mieszkał, przynajmniej przez te kilka miesięcy przed swoją śmiercią, na uniwersytecie działała i wciąż pewnie działa organizacja LGBT. Chciałem zapytać Ciebie, Judy, czy rozmawiałaś z członkami tej organizacji po śmierci Matta? To pytanie jest dla mnie szczególnie ważne o tyle, że w Polsce pierwsza oficjalna organizacja LGBT na jakimkolwiek uniwersytecie powstała 2 lata temu, w 2010 roku na Uniwersytecie Warszawskim Queer UW. Natomiast na niewielkim uniwersytecie w Wyoming, w Laramie, taka organizacja działała w 1998 roku. To też pokazuje stan zaawansowania ruchu LGBT w Stanach Zjednoczonych i w Polsce. Więc chodzi mi o społeczność LGBT w Laramie. Judy, czy mogłabyś na ten temat coś powiedzieć?
Oh, I'm not sure when the organization actually started, but Matt did join. It was one of the first things he did on the day of registration. But Matt had always been an activist, had always been politically active and knowledgeable and aware. In fact, he participated in his first election when he was 7, hanging flyers on people's doorknobs. He was very concerned about society at large and everyone in it. So I wasn't at all surprised that he joined this group. It was quite small at the time, maybe 15 people at the most on their list, but it had been in existence a few years before Matt joined. On other campuses in the U.S., they've been there decades, long time. So, and it was university sanctioned. It's still there, flourishing. It has its own space. It's called it has a dedicated space in the student union called the Rainbow Lounge, and kids go there and they talk and they meet and they plan activities. And I don't know how active they are on activities on campus. I do know that they participate in a seminar every spring called the Shepard Symposium that deals with social justice issues. The president of the university that was there when Matt was killed changed the name of the existing symposium to honor Matt's struggle. So it was, I thought it was really special for him to do that, to honor Matt that way, because it would have been one thing that Matt really would have appreciated. And the organization, as far as I know, is doing really quite well.
Proszę Państwa, chcielibyśmy, żeby to spotkanie było jak najbardziej otwarte również dla publiczności, więc jeśli Państwo już teraz mają jakieś pytania do Judy albo do Dennisa, to zapraszamy. Czy są jakieś pytania już? Śmiało. Okej, no to jeszcze poczekamy chwilkę. Judy, chciałem Cię zapytać, jak to było walczyć o prawa osób LGBT za czasów prezydenta Busha?
Well, there wasn't much of a fight. Well, there was a fight, but there was not much chance of success. We knew from the very beginning that President Bush was not going to do anything that would advance the rights of the gay community. He made that very clear as the governor of Texas before he became president, that he just did not agree at all with anything to do with the gay community. And even though the vice president's daughter was a lesbian and out with a partner for years and years and years, he just wasn't going to, give an inch. So we knew we had work to do that we could do at a local level and maybe not count on the president helping us at all, which actually turned out to be the case because he was not at all helpful one way or the other. I remember one day he got in front of the press on national TV and said that he was trying to establish a federal amendment to the U.S. Constitution to define marriage as between a man and a woman. And I could not imagine in my lifetime ever hearing a national leader wanting to enshrine in the Constitution discrimination. That was something that was just totally antithetical to everything Americans stand for, which is equality for everyone, because it's not really gay rights, it's equal rights. All we want is equality, nothing more, nothing less. And here he was telling us that in the Constitution, we were actually going to protect the majority of American citizens from a minority of American citizens, which just didn't, was just beyond my comprehension. It didn't happen. I suppose it still could happen at some point in the future, I certainly hope not, but I think we've come far enough in the U.S. that it wouldn't be allowed. But it's been, since Obama has been president, and we've made some really crucial steps forward, and not so many steps back. States' rights still hold, I guess, the most influence in the gay community, but I don't know how long that will last. So as long as we have a Congress and a president who are in favor of equality, you know, we look forward to more progress. If something changes, I'm not really sure when it'll be.
Proszę Państwa, może teraz już jakieś pytanie? Jest pierwsze pytanie. Ja może... Tak? Okej. To zapraszam.
So, Mr. and Mrs. Shepard, with a question exactly about what we're talking. As we all know, there's sheer contrast between each state. We have a few states recognizing even marriages, we have a few states recognizing some forms of partnership, and on the other hand, some states where religious leaders advocate for some forms of treatment, obligatory treatment for gay people. So, do you believe it is possible in the foreseeable future to see some legislation on the federal level? Because, as we all know, only through maybe some form of amendment to the Constitution it's possible to achieve full equality. Do you believe? What would you say? How many years it's going to take for conservative states like Texas, I know, like the Bible Belt? We have some very huge controversies in California recently. What's your belief? What's your opinion on that?
Well, I think my personal opinion is that the ultimate marriage question is going to be solved in the courts, much like Loving v. Virginia, which granted rights to interracial couples in the 70s, I think. This is what's going to happen for gay marriage in the States. We can't have a nation with a patchwork of your marriage is recognized in Massachusetts, but if you move to Florida, it's not. That's just untenable. That's ridiculous. And I think it won't be long before we enforce that states recognize each other's contracts, and that would include a marriage contract, and that the Supreme Court is ultimately going to have to make the decision. Now here's the problem. We have a very evenly divided Supreme Court of 9, 4 one way usually and 4 the other way usually, with one swing justice in our Supreme Court. A few of the judges are really old, and they will be retiring sometime soon, which makes it really critical for a favorable president to be elected to appoint new judges. And by favorable, I mean my point of view, which would be liberal as opposed to conservative. So much depends on this election that we haven't even thought about it all the way down the road. And even though federally, when the Supreme Court decided Loving v. Virginia, many states still did not change their own constitutions, some until just recently. But federally, they had to recognize each other's contracts. So marriage became legal everywhere. And I think that's going to be the ultimate solution here for gay marriage. I do not think that Congress, given its fear of being reelected, is going to make that decision. I wish they would, but I don't think they will. I think they're going to turn it over, they're going to leave it to the courts to decide. The so-called activist judges, because that's where we're seeing it go right now, with them not choosing to challenge DOMA, Defense of Marriage Act in the U.S., and the statements the President has made, the Vice President has made, his cabinet level people have made. I just think that ultimately it's going to be a popular decision solved in the court, not in Congress.
Yes, I have another question. Actually, have you already conducted or made any consultations with the Mitt Romney's staff? Because we still don't know what's going to be the result of the upcoming election. And I was wondering, aren't you afraid of the Mitt Romney's success? Well, the conservative revolution of the Tea Party. Do you believe it will hinder your efforts to ensure equality, or do you, or maybe you hope for some form of cooperation from Mitt Romney personally? Because as we know, he swings between opinions on even this subject, but as a governor in Massachusetts, he used to be, present rather open, liberal view on this matter.
Yeah, I think it's assumed because he was a governor of Massachusetts that that's the way he thinks, but I don't think that he does. And afraid it doesn't even begin to cover my level of emotion that Romney might win over Obama. I am scared to death that the Romney-Ryan ticket would have a chance to win because we will be stuck in our tracks and actually may have to go backwards. I'm scared to death that that will happen. As a woman, just as a woman, I fear I'm going to wake up in the 50s based on what he has said about how he feels about women's rights in the U.S. And I am very scared. I just, I do whatever I can to think positively that Middle America is going to come to its senses and understand that Romney is too far to the right. And I know I've heard someone say the better the devil you know than the devil you don't. So I'm really, I personally adore Obama. I know a lot of people don't, but he has the potential to do really great things. And I want him to fulfill that potential. So I'm really, really working and praying and hoping and wishing and gathering shamrocks and all those things that he will get reelected. I'm very, very hopeful. However, at the same time, we have to remember that it's not just Obama we have to elect. It's a Congress that will support his position. If we elect Obama and then elect all Tea Party members to Congress, we've not accomplished anything. So, as American voters, we have to keep that in mind as well.
A to prawda, że właśnie w tym czasie, w którym prezydent Obama poparł małżeństwa homoseksualne, wprowadzenie małżeństw homoseksualnych w Stanach Zjednoczonych, czyli w marcu tego roku, to poparcie opinii publicznej dla małżeństw homoseksualnych właśnie przekroczyło 50%?
The various polls that actually, many of them had said that Americans had crossed over the 50% line earlier than Obama's statement, but it certainly did push it further. It almost felt like when he had said that, as well as Vice President Biden, that it gave the country as a whole permission to voice positive reaction to gay marriage. Sort of, we're just going to go with popular opinion, and if the president says it's okay, then hey, it's okay. It just felt like he gave permission to everybody to actually say that it was going to be all right. So I think it made a huge difference. We all kind of knew that that's where he was leaning, but for him to come out and nationally, publicly say that was just, it was huge.
Tu jeszcze pani się zgłaszała z pytaniem, prawda? Tak.
Albo po polsku.
Tak, po polsku, tak.
Działa? Dzień dobry. Takie pytanie. Kiedy Matt jeszcze żył? W ogóle orientowaliście się Państwo w sprawach LGBT, interesowaliście się tym tematem? To jest pierwsza część pytania. Druga, to po tragicznych wydarzeniach w Laramie. Jaki był Wasz pierwszy krok, żeby się jeszcze bardziej zbliżyć do tego tematu?
We were living in Wyoming. There's only 500,000 people in the whole state of Wyoming. It's 8th largest of the 50 states, but nobody really lives there. So there's no gay and lesbian bookstore on the corner like you might find in San Francisco or New York or any place like that. So any information that would be on the internet now, because the internet didn't exist then, we were really very ignorant except what we would read in the popular press, which was discrimination, fear, the AIDS pandemic, all bad things, not anything good. And then we were living in Saudi Arabia. Well, there's no gay and lesbian bookstore in Saudi Arabia either, or the internet. And so we knew really very little about the condition of the gay community trying to achieve equal rights. We didn't know, for example, that you could still be fired from your job if you were gay in many states in the U.S., that there was no federal job protection. There was just so much we didn't know. And after Matt was killed, I became involved in an organization called the Human Rights Campaign, which is the largest gay and lesbian lobbying organization in the U.S., based in Washington, D.C., and that they were my education in that regard, in politics and other national organizations, Parents, Family and Friends, Lesbians and Gays, PFLAG, GLSEN, the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network. A few of those organizations educated us in other ways. But we were on a learning curve that was just amazing. We knew so little because we were living in such isolated conditions up until Matt was killed. What little we did know, Matt had taught us, but he didn't really have the opportunity even then to teach us much. So when your child comes out to you, they become the teacher and you become the student, but there wasn't much class time in between telling him his death. So we were on a very steep learning curve in regard. There was no question that there was no negativity in regard to the gay community. It was just we knew very little information, particulars, specifics.
Thank you for answering my question.
Of course.
Tak, mamy kolejne pytanie, tak? Tak.
I know that in order to do all the really good work you're doing, you need money. And I was looking at your website, and it seems like you must be quite good at this. And when I was looking at the stuff on your website, you just seem to do it in such an interesting, amazing, awareness-raising way. I saw there's a teddy bear hunt in limousines in Texas. And I just, maybe because I'm a little obsessed with fundraising right now for things that are not so easy to get money for, right? And I just thought, if you can raise money for erasing hate in Texas, I just maybe wanted to, because I work for a number of different organizations, and everyone is looking for money and trying to figure out how to get it from grants, but also the idea of private people giving us and supporting us. It's not just even about their cash, it's about like a commitment to change, really. And I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about that, because we need help.
Sure. I'll start. The teddy bear event in Dallas is because Dallas has a overwhelming population of gay and lesbians in Dallas who believe in what we do, and that's really the key. The downside to that is that the gay community in particular seems to feel like there's a limited amount of pockets for donations. So I am constantly nagging the guys in my office, you must remember there's this giant community of straight allies waiting to be asked to participate, to help. You just need to educate them and reach out to them and stop excluding them from what you do, because you're assuming they're not going to want to. But they do. All they want is to be asked. There is not a limited number of pockets for contributions to the gay community. Fundraising in general in the US right now, maybe worldwide, is really, really hard because the economic downturn is at everyone in the pocket. So it's really hard. And one of the things we found at the foundation is that creativity is really key. You do something really different and you make it really fun, as long as you talk about the true mission and you're true to the mission. That's really been our success. But I have to correct you on one point. We have a wonderful website. We have wonderful employees and a wonderful organization called Purple Crayons that does our website. We are an organization of 6 people with a budget under $1 million. We're very small. We accomplish a lot with a few people, few money, few dollars, but it's about commitment and the desire to make the change and a belief in what we do. But we are not big and we don't have a lot of money. And we are very indebted to one in particular gentleman who really believes in what we do and makes sure that we have a nice fundraiser every few years. Elton John is a wonderful friend to us, so he's been magnificent. And but without the generosity of a few folks like that, we wouldn't. I'm not sure how we could do. But it is really hard to be a fundraiser right now. I totally empathize. But we are not big. we're just good.
A Elton John dał 2 koncerty w Laramie, prawda? Poświęcone pamięci Matta.
Yes, the first concert was in May of 1999. He actually had tried to contact us while Matt was still in the hospital, but we thought it was a crank call and didn't pay any attention to it. So eventually, a few months later, you know, things happen if they're supposed to happen. So we managed to get in touch again a few months later. He gave a wonderful, beautiful memorial concert for Matt, but also for the students at the University of Wyoming, because he felt like the public was blaming them for what happened to Matt. And he wanted them to know that he didn't believe that, and he believed in them, and that they never would have allowed that to happen had the opportunity. A few years later, he gave another one in Laramie in April, and I tried to talk him out of going to Laramie in April, and we had a giant blizzard, and they almost got snowed in. But it was wonderful again. And he did another one in Denver 2 years ago. So he's been a great friend to the foundation, a wonderful individual.
Proszę Państwa, zapraszamy do dalszych pytań.
It's me again. I actually want, I don't know, it is, I guess, maybe a sensitive question, but what relationship do you have, if any, to the parents of the guys, of the murderers? And what do you know about the parents? What do you think effect they had? What role do they play in this? And if any relationship that you have with them?
We have no relationship with the two men, with the parents of the two men who killed Matt. They've not reached out to us at all, and nor us to them. Both young men have lost their mothers. One of their mothers actually was murdered a few years after Matt, actually a year after Matt. And the other one's mother died in surgery several years before. They are, I guess the kindest way to describe their family life would be dysfunctional. They did not come from good families, immediate families. One young man had a grandmother in Laramie who was a very prominent member of the community, very well respected, well loved, and she was just verklempt at what happened to Matt, and most apologetic and asking for forgiveness for him and her. And but we have no relationship with them. They've not reached out. I didn't expect them to reach out. I don't know. I don't know if they feel a sense of responsibility for the actions of their children. I am sure that they are heartbroken that their children are now in prison forever. It was not just one family that was devastated that night. It was 3 families that were devastated. It was a very selfish action on their part. But we have no relationship with them.
Do you have any idea about, do you feel like their families instill some sort of open homophobia in their children, or do you think that those guys soaked it up more in the community or in their immediate family? Or?
I don't really know them well enough. I would hazard a guess that the father of one would have been homophobic, openly homophobic, and the other young man was just neglected. He was a follower. I'm not sure he ever had an independent thought. So, but I do think that the father of one was openly everything, racist, everything.
And this is all a matter of education. And that's the thing that we can't emphasize enough. You learn from your family, from your friends, from the media, from everybody around you. And if everybody is homophobic as you grow up, you're going to be that way too without knowing why. All you know is it's bad and those people need to be beaten or bullied or tormented any way that you can do so because you think it's your right to do so. So it's all a matter of education, education, education.
Mamy następne pytanie.
Let me try in English this time. Before tragic October 1998, have you ever heard about hate crimes? And what was your biggest fear when you heard from Matt that he's gay?
We did know about hate crimes largely because they were, well, we knew hate crimes had been committed because of race, burning a cross in someone's yard, that kind of thing. Wasn't really aware of hate crimes being called hate crimes against the gay community. There was this activity called rolling a fag, which was sort of the novel thing to do for many years, where you would beat and rob a gay man, and he would never report it because he didn't want the public to know that he was gay. So it was a crime you could get away with. That was probably, up until the AIDS pandemic, the only time you ever heard about violence against the gay community, and it was hardly ever, you know, in the newspaper. You just heard about it. When the AIDS pandemic came about, violence against the gay community rose because of fear of the ignorance of the virus AIDS, HIV/AIDS. So it became more prominent. So yes, we were aware. In June of 1998, just prior to Matt's death, there was a horrendous hate crime committed against a black man in Texas named James Burke Jr. He was drugged to his death behind a pickup truck. And that was probably the most violent hate crime I had recollection of up until that point. And then a few months later was Matt, and then a few months after that was Columbine in Colorado. So it was a year, 12 months filled with hate. But I guess probably the hate crimes against the gay community were not part of popular press, so it would not have been on our mind. We knew it happened. We were fearful it would happen when Matt came out, but you worry about your kids, gay or straight, that something is going to happen to them. So, thank you.
Tak, mamy kolejne nawet dwa pytania.
Chciałbym zapytać, w tym pierwszym okresie po śmierci syna, jak Państwo pamiętają, czego Państwo potrzebowali najbardziej i drugie, co Państwu było najbardziej pomocne w tamtym czasie. I też trochę wychodząc od tego z Państwa doświadczeń, co najbardziej przyczyniało się do, Państwa zdaniem, do zmian postaw tutaj w tym zakresie w Stanach?
Do you mean the first phase of Matt coming out? Or the first phase following his death? Following his death.
Po śmierci. Po śmierci.
I guess what we needed the most was each other, understanding, and that we had lost Matt, but that we needed to move forward for Matt. We wanted to honor his memory in the best way that we could, and that was by being true and honest about how we felt and trying to help other members of his community or just folks at large understand that being gay does not commit you to a life of sadness or depression or worry or fear, that you should be recognized as a human being like everyone else. I guess what helped us the most was talking to other people with the same goals and ideas on how to get there, I guess.
Judy was more involved with this because 2 weeks after Matt died, I went back to Saudi Arabia to work, pay the bills while she traveled. She was thrown into it from the very beginning. Fortunately, as she said, HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, stuck by her, educated her so that she could then decide where she wanted to go. We received thousands and thousands of dollars when Matt was in the hospital and after he died. Small contributions, $5, $50, $100, from people who were just devastated by what had happened to Matt and wanted to give their share of what they could afford to help pay for Matt's medical bills. We felt that that was not proper, that Matt was our son and that was our financial responsibility. So we decided to take that money and use it to help other kids and other families. So while I'm back in Saudi Arabia working, Judy received the education. She suddenly finds herself testifying in front of the U.S. Senate on gay rights. At the same time, she's trying to develop a vision, a goal, and her mission for the foundation. So everything that we've accomplished has been accomplished by her, an abandoned wife. Now, something that always disturbs me is that we knew nothing about the gay community. We knew nothing about hate crimes. I didn't know what a hate crime was. I just knew we were seeing these civil rights crimes, minorities being beaten, you know, the burning of the crosses, everything like that. But I didn't know that was a hate crime. I didn't know there was a law against that kind of thing. I was just totally ignorant, living in my own little world, trying to raise my family and give them the morals and the ethics along with Judy so they could be good, solid citizens and be successful in their own life. So it's been Judy is still teaching me, because we had 12 years after Matt died where I was in Saudi Arabia by myself, while she stayed here and traveled and lobbied and lived in hotels and ate hotel food if she had time to eat, and lived in airport terminals to protect others. We didn't want Matt's life to be just another death that would not recognize him and it would not recognize others. And I bring this up because we keep talking about the gay community and everything that's happening to them. You have to also remember there are those who are not gay, who are perceived to be gay. They may walk a little funny, they may talk a little funny, they may dress a little funny, so people automatically think they are gay, and they are not. So they receive the same type of abuse, the same type of humiliation. Those kids need to be protected also. And that's also what we're trying to do. Thank you.
I don't know what it says about us as a society if we have to persecute someone just because they appear to be different or funny from what we are used to seeing. We should be celebrating anything that makes life more interesting and not fear it. We know that when children start school, that is what excites them, is learning something new and something different. Somewhere along the way, they learn that different is bad. Different is not bad. Different is wonderful. It's what makes life worth living. And as a society, worldwide, local, when we begin to realize that individuality is really, in my opinion, why we're here, I think the better off we will be. Oh, earlier I mentioned James Byrd Jr. Being killed in Texas just before Matt. We had a working relationship with James Byrd's family for a while, and one of his sisters was telling a story about her granddaughter. She started kindergarten one day and she came home and said, "I have just made the best friend ever. We both like this and we both like that, and our dresses look similar and we draw the same." And she just went on and on about how much she loved her new friend. And the grandmother just in passing asked her, "Well, what color is her skin?" And the little girl looked at her grandma and she said, "You know, I forgot to look." So we know they just don't care about that. They may notice that you're wearing, your hair is red or your hair is blonde, or they don't care. They just know they like you. And if we could spend our whole life like that, how much better would all our lives be?
To jeszcze swoją cegiełkę na temat bycia innym mogę dołożyć. Judy opowiadała, jak kiedy miała pierwsze podejrzenia na początku co do tego, że Matt jest gejem. Matt miał 8 lat, kiedy na Halloween po raz pierwszy przebrał się za Dolly Parton. A później jeszcze 2 lata z rzędu przebierał się za Dolly Parton. Mamy następne pytanie. To proszę bardzo, tak.
It's a short question. I don't know if you ever had an opportunity, but if you ever met parents who says, I have a child, my child is gay, I hate him, her. What would you say to that person?
They would say, I hate them?
Yeah, if the parent hates a child because child is gay, what would you say?
Well, that's a tragic situation because your child is your child no matter what. And as parents, Dennis and I felt that your child should come number one in your life over everything else that you live for. You're protecting and loving your child. If you hate your child because they're gay, it's due to your own ignorance, because you fear someone has told you that's bad. You have some feelings you got from somewhere else, and you should reevaluate your value system, because that is unforgivable, that is untenable, that is unacceptable. Your child is your child, and your job is to protect and love them, no matter what. I had a very dear friend say to me that sometimes your best family is not the family you were born into. And I have experienced, by meeting many, many people, that they have lived through exactly your story, your question, that their parents now hate them because of who they are, and I find that to be the most heartbreaking situation that could exist. You think that your parents are going to love and protect you and take care of you, that you're going to be safe and feel, all comfortable and warm and fuzzy and be with them forever, and they will always be there when you need them most, and when you find out that isn't the case, it just must be the most devastating thing possible. One of the reasons we are here is to try to help other families understand how important that is and help them deal with the issue. It's not really uncommon for that to happen. The parents will say they hate their children. Oftentimes they change their mind when they understand what they're really giving up. But it is not, and unfortunately it does happen.
A o co najczęściej was ci rodzice pytają?
You never meet those parents because they never go where Judy or I go, because they already have their mind made up. You see the results of that. You see the children. And what I wanted to remind you is, I'm not sure there are no statistics in this country yet for hate crimes, which is very unfortunate. In the United States, young people have a high suicide rate, but the suicide rate among the gay community and those perceived to be gay is 4 times the rate of the normal suicide rate. They give up. They lose hope. They get depressed because they have no support system. They are kicked out of their homes. They go into drugs and prostitution to survive on the streets. And it takes a very strong person to do that and come out on the other end alive. And that depresses me and scares me to death. We have such potential that we are losing when these young people give up hope and think it's easier to take their life than to go through that to find out there is a rainbow at the other end. But to do that, they need the support of their family, of their friends, and of the community. And it starts in here, in Poland. And that's another thing that Judy always talks about. It's called telling your story. The gay community can tell their story to each other, and that's as far as it goes. It's their family, their friends, and their allies that need to tell this story. Talk about them. Families need to have their pictures up on the wall with their partners if they have one, to show that they do support it. I know it's very hard to do. You say, well, I'll lose my friends. Well, if that's the case, they weren't friends anyway. But from our own experience, the gay community is just as boring and dull as the straight community. They want to go through school, get a job, buy a home, possibly have a family, retire, and die of old age gracefully, like everybody else. I was speaking one time to a large group of law enforcement, and I heard somebody say, yeah, you can always tell who these queers are because they're the ones in the boas and the feathers. Well, that's true when you have the Gay Pride Parade, because those are the pictures the reporters take, because that sells the papers or the magazines. So I got up and said, how many believe that if you're gay, you wear feathers and boas? And a lot of people, a lot of law enforcement raised their hand. And I said, okay, are you telling me that every person who is in New Orleans in Mardi Gras wearing feathers and boas, and in Rio during Carnival wearing feathers and boas is gay? And that pretty much shut him down. They do that for a reason, that most of them, like I said, are dull and boring.
No offense.
No offense. Well, yeah, we want to offend you. We want you to be proud of that. But again, it comes from the fact that your family and your friends and your allies have to tell the stories and let them know that the people in the gay community are just like us. And there are a lot more straight people than gay people. So you are the ones, the straight people, who have to tell the stories and make it normal. And you're starting in baby steps in this country to do this. Very baby steps. This, today, and tomorrow are the beginnings. You have to start somewhere. Just like the Arab Spring started somewhere. Just like Valencia started somewhere in this country. It's a beginning, but it takes all of you to make an end.
Dennis wspomniał, że nie ma u nas statystyk, jeśli chodzi o przestępstwa z nienawiści. Rzeczywiście nie ma. Ja w książce Judy przeczytałem, że w USA 16% przestępstw nienawiści, 16% z wszystkich przestępstw nienawiści to są przestępstwa z nienawiści ze względu na orientację seksualną. No, czyli rzeczywiście jest to problem, który być może w Polsce ma podobne rozmiary i za każdym razem, jak myślę o jakiejś bezsensownej zbrodni, o której słyszymy, która rzekomo nie miała motywu, to myślę, może ona miała motyw, tylko my go nie znamy. I może ten motyw to była homofobia, na przykład. Proszę Państwa, następne pytania, bo tam osoby się zgłaszały. Słucham.
Ja mam pytanie dość podobne do pytania, które zadawała Pani przede mną, tylko bardziej w stronę polityki. W Polsce w ostatnim czasie bardzo dużo mówi się o związkach partnerskich i o nowelizacji ustawy o mowie nienawiści. W polskim Sejmie mieliśmy różnego rodzaju wystąpienia, na przykład jednej z polskich posłanek mówiących o niegodnych uczynkach, albo posła mówiącego o tym, że gejowski faszyzm nie przejdzie. Gdyby Państwo mogli stanąć na chwilę przed głosowaniem nowelizacji ustawy o mowie nienawiści przed polskimi posłami, na przykład przed polskim premierem, który bardzo próbuje się unikać tego tematu, co Państwo by mu powiedzieli?
I guess the same thing I told the U.S. Congress. This is about everyone's children, and if you care about your future society, you will care about everyone's children. Their safety, their productivity, their happiness, all of those things. The members of the gay community have the same dreams and the same aspirations as everyone else, to love and be loved in return. How hard is that to understand? You are who you are, and you love who you love, and that's just the way it is. To deny members of the gay community anything from a tax benefit that you get when you're married, taking care of your children, death benefits, inheritance, all those things are legal discrimination when you don't get those same rights to members of the gay community. So you are, in essence, practicing legal discrimination against certain members of your society. And why would you want to do that? Why would you want to do that? It's not good business, it's not good politics, it makes no sense, it's inhumane, inhuman, cruel, unkind, all of those things. Wouldn't you want everyone in your society to be on equal footing, if just for financial reasons? That makes perfect sense to me. If you're going to continue to encourage language against a certain sector of your society that indicates you dislike them, you disrespect them, that you treat them differently with like a second-class citizen, all you're doing is hurting the future of your nation. You want the best and the brightest to achieve everything, and members of the gay community are indeed possible to be the best and the brightest. We just don't often know that because they are not given the same opportunities. Extremely unfortunate. Equally unfortunate is not being able to talk about it in school, to know that some of our greatest leaders and artists and people in the military and governing and have been gay. We're here now and always have been. Nothing will change, and to make it better is to accept that they should be on equal footing with everyone else. That only improves society. How hard can that be to understand? I mean, seriously.
I just want to say a little something. This is where I get on my soapbox. Part of your problem in this country, just like in the United States, is religious. Marriage is not a religious contract. Do you get your marriage license from the church, or do you get it from civil? It's a civil act. You go to your church to be married so it can be blessed by the church, but it is not required. And when the clergy wants to tell me how to live my life as a married couple, and yet they are not married, I would like to know where they have the life experience to tell me these things. I know this hurts the feelings of the Roman Catholics, the Mormon Church, and a few others, but I cannot agree with them telling me how to live my life when they cannot live it also. It's just like not allowing women priests. Why are they so unqualified? So the Prime Minister needs to realize that everybody, every Pole is a citizen. You are born with the same equal rights, and you should have all of those rights. Yesterday we went to the museum for the Warsaw Uprising, where all the people who fought and died in that straight. Did they fight because they loved their country? Did they fight because they thought this was an opportunity to kill all the straights and then we can take over the country? No. They fought because it was their desire to protect their country, their fellow man, their fellow citizen. It's appalling that this is not recognized, either here or in the United States. Thank you for my soapbox.
Proszę.
First of all, Mrs. Shepard, I'd like to say that you are the best parents any queer kid or a queer kid in general could ever imagine having.
Thank you.
My question is, I think it has been answered already partially, but I'd like to ask how a kid, a teenager, a young adult, whose parents don't accept their identity, and the kids, teenagers, adults face emotional abuse, financial violence, and sometimes even physical. So my question is, a few words, how to withstand that? What would you say to those teenagers?
Well, again, back to my friend who said sometimes your best family is not the family you were born into. There is this wonderful concept called the extended family, which is friends who love and support you and their families who love and support you, and a long list of therapists and psychologists and legal help and employers, and they are out there. And there are, I guess I can't say that about Poland, I'm not really sure, campaigning against homophobia with references to folks to help you deal with legal issues and financial issues. But you are absolutely right that the emotional is the hardest to overcome. My suggestion has always been to those young people, and I have met many whose families have rejected them, that at some point in time, and this always isn't the most popular answer, but at some point in time, the individual has to make the decision that they are more important than how their family feels about them. You just need to move away to someone who loves you and cares about you, and not spend your life trying to please those who are never going to accept you for who you are, who will not accept your partner or your future family or your future life. That it's a difficult decision to make, but sometimes it's necessary for your own survival. To find a friend, a separate family, someone who will care and love you like your parents should. But if they don't, this is really about you and your survival, not them and how they feel about it. It's unfortunate that we are at that crossroads, but when we get there, the decision, in my opinion, needs to be made. What is more important to you? Pleasing your parents or having a life? By the time I meet these kids in college, they've gotten it figured out. Who's going to be their support system? What mentor have they chosen to guide them through their personal life? Whether it's someone else's mother or, a friend, they are out there and willing and able to help. They are not your parents, I agree, but if your parents aren't there, then they are better than nothing. It is a difficult choice, and as a parent, it breaks my heart to have to say that. But there are parents who just will not ever accept their children if they are gay. But by the same token, I have met many, many, many parents with gay children who suddenly realize that, as Dennis said, at least they have their children in their life. They enjoy the love of their child, and they realize that a concession or a compromise or something can be achieved through discussions and talking with the child, and they may have a family and a partner and all of a sudden a grandchild, and everything is very, very different. So what I'm saying is, don't burn bridges, don't give up hope, but sometimes you just need to move on for your own sanity.
Sometimes I've told them this: assume you're an orphan. what would you do? Tomorrow your mother and father are killed in a car wreck. What would you do? I used to do that with Matt and Logan. They'd come up and say, well, I need to do this, what do I do? And I said, I just died 10 minutes ago, what would you do? Make them make the choice, because they have to live with that decision. I can't make decisions for them. They should, if they have any blame, it should be on them, so they learn how to handle and make decisions. It's the same. What would you do if you were suddenly without parents? It gives you a little different viewpoint. But it's really hard to say, I no longer have parents. It's the physical abuse and the emotional abuse and the mental abuse. There's a difference between mental abuse and emotional abuse. And if it's that bad, then you are one of that 4 times greater statistic. You have the potential to be one of those. And that's a loss to us and to you and to the family and your friends. So it's a tough choice.
We understand how important family is to everyone, and if the family unit has always been defined for you as the most important thing in your future and your past, how hard it would be to walk away. But honestly, sometimes the decision just has to be made to preserve yourself, in my opinion.
And your self-respect.
Yeah.
A jakie macie wrażenie z dzisiejszego spotkania z 9 polskimi mamami?
Well, the meeting today with the Polish moms was amazing. They were so smart and educated and committed. But the most amazing thing was they already knew so much. They had great education before we met with them. They asked such smart questions, and they illustrated to us how universal the problem is.
And they show that they really love their children.
Yes.
Whether they're gay or straight.
Yes.
They love their children. And they would do anything to protect them. Impressive.
Mamy kolejne pytanie. Zapraszamy.
Ja zauważyłam, rzuciło mi się w oczy, że w książce The Meaning of Matthew sporo pokazujesz, ujawniasz, opowiadasz o rzeczach, które często rodzice woleliby ukryć, woleliby nie opowiadać o swoich dzieciach. I chciałam zapytać, no bo domyślam się oczywiście, że zrobiłaś to celowo i świadomie, chciałam domyślać, jaka idea Ci przyświecała przy tym.
I know that many of you may expect to read when you read a book written by someone's mother, that the story of the child is going to be very glowing and positive and all of those things, maybe unbelievably talking about their amazing achievements. Well, Matt had many of those, and I did talk about all of that. But one thing I felt it was very important to make clear was Matt was a young man who had issues. He suffered through depression. He smoked too many cigarettes. He drank too much sometimes. He didn't go to class enough. He suffered and experienced all the things all young people do. And it was so important to us, and I think it would have been to Matt, for people to know who Matt was. They had become to know someone named Matthew through the press and other people's stories, but they didn't really know Matt. And it was so important for us to know that other people reading the book, young people in particular, would see that Matt was just like them, that he was a real person who had real problems, and that it was not some unattainable goal to survive those problems. Yes, he suffered rejection from his church, from a church, not his church. He had some friends that he lost. He, as I said, he suffered with depression. It was all of those things so many other young people in Matt's situation face. And he survived, and so can they. We wanted them to be able to identify with Matt and for other readers to know the truth about Matt. That was the most important thing to us, not to gloss over everything that someone may view as negative about Matt's life. It was to meet Matt, who he really was.
To ja tylko dodam, że książka Judy Shepard, imienia od Matthew, jest również w posiadaniu Biblioteki Kampanii Przeciw Homofobii. Także można przeczytać.
Ja chciałam powiedzieć, co było już mówione, że jesteście Państwo wspaniałymi rodzicami i mówicie, robicie Państwo bardzo wiele dla osób homoseksualnych, dla młodych osób homoseksualnych oraz dla ich rodziców, bo uświadamiacie, jak w ogóle wygląda sytuacja. Chciałabym wiedzieć, czy są jakieś takie podobne osoby, które podobnie jak Państwo działają z kolei na rzecz osób transpłciowych, bo tutaj padły statystyczne dane na temat ile było przestępstw z nienawiści związanych z orientacją seksualną, a jestem również ciekawa, czy takie dane na temat przestępstw z nienawiści, które były spowodowane tożsamością płciową lub ekspresją płciową młodych osób.
Yes to all of that. There is a family, there are many families actually, campaigning for transgender rights. And there is quite an organization in the States, used to be called Gender PAC, I think they recently changed their name, trying to gather data and equal rights for the transgender population. Transgender is it's a very sensitive issue everywhere, and in the States, trying to, on a national or even state congressional level, it's very hard to talk about because no one can really define it. No one can really explain it in a way that everyone understands. So it's a very hard issue to grasp, and it makes it that much more difficult to achieve an understanding and a level of acceptability for the society in general. There are parents campaigning for transgender rights. There are more hate crimes. Statistically, hate crimes committed against the transgender community are occurring at a faster rate than the gay, lesbian, bisexual categories. And it's because everyone's afraid. No one understands it, no one can explain it, nobody has a concept of how that comes about, and it's fearful. And when people talk about gay and lesbian rights in the States, anyone who is against it immediately brings up transgender, which makes everybody turn the corner the other way. Because they don't want to talk about it, they don't want to have to deal with the issue at all because they don't understand it. It's a part of the issue that we just need to learn more about and to talk more about. And when we talk about gay and lesbian rights, I'll always include transgender because they are a sexual minority, and gay and lesbian doesn't always apply to them either, but they are a sexual minority. So it's equally important that we deal with transgender issues. But it's hard to talk about. People just, they like tune you out because they don't get it. They don't understand it. And but it is a terrifying place to be because hate crimes of all levels, including death, are on the rise in the transgender community. Did I answer your question?
Czy mamy jeszcze jakieś pytania? I jeszcze mamy jedno pytanie.
Ja się chciałem tak przewrotnie trochę zapytać, bo wiemy, co się udało na Państwa drodze tutaj właśnie walki o prawa osób LGBT. Mamy Matthew Shepard, tak? My jesteśmy na początku tej drogi w Polsce i chciałbym się zapytać Państwa jako rodziców, czego powinniśmy się wystrzegać? Czy może macie takie doświadczenia, jakichś porażek albo jakichś takich rzeczy, których tutaj, nie wiem, angażując rodziców, nie należałoby robić?
Wow, that's a tough one. What did we do wrong? Well, we went to a Congress who wouldn't listen to us. What did we do right? We managed to get Congress elected that would listen to us. It's a multi-tiered problem. you have to have supporters in your legislature who have the power to make the change. And so you have to find a way to get them elected. And that means you have to educate the constituency who's going to elect them. So it's a process. It is a long process. The one mistake that I can identify immediately is that we thought we could achieve this from working from the top down, from having a president who favored the position with President Clinton, not understanding that nothing was going to happen if Congress and Congress constituents didn't also support it. That was the one mistake we made. It's an analogy would be you want something to happen at your school, so the first person you go to is the superintendent, the ultimate power, and he says no, then where are you going to go? You have nowhere else to go. So you want to start with maybe the teacher's aide or the intern and then work your way up. That's how you have to do it. And it's a process and it takes time. And public pressure from the constituents and the public at large definitely adds to your success. So it's about educating them on what the gay community doesn't have and why they should have it.
It's not only educating them, but it's getting them elected and then holding their feet to the fire for the stuff that they say they are going to do to make sure that they do it. If they don't, get rid of them. Find another candidate. And this is what's difficult. A lot of people do not want to put themselves out in public, especially since you're right in the beginning of this, as being in support of the gay community. That person is going to have to be very brave. You already have a couple of wonderful representatives in Parliament, but they need support themselves for what they are trying to accomplish, not just for the country as a whole, but also for equal rights, not gay rights, but equal rights for everybody. So you need to start maybe within just say this district, getting some of the elders elected to local offices to start with. And then they can make some changes. And then from there you make more changes. And then you go up higher, as Judy said, and work your way from the bottom up. But you cannot do it and expect it to be done immediately. This is not going to happen. You have the old, I call them geezers, the old people like me. They are locked into a position and they are not going to change. In the States, when I speak, I say the best thing we can ever do is get rid of all the old geezers at once, because they are locking these kids into something that they do not care about. And then they have to figure out how to unlock that law. So it's a gradual, slow, frustrating process. But you need to start if you want to accomplish anything. You have to start somewhere. Again, like I said, this is the beginning. Right in here. Just the fact that you're here. Whether you may be here just for your own information, you may be here because you're against it, but you want the information to use it against it. But you're here. That's the important thing.
Rzeczywiście zaczynamy, bo jeśli chodzi o związki partnerskie, to nie wiem czy wiecie, ale polski Sejm zajął się po raz pierwszy związkami partnerskimi w lipcu tego roku. Trwało to 10 minut i dyskusja została odrzucona, ale to był ten pierwszy krok, 24 lipca. Pytania, tak?
That's okay, it got discussed, it got opened up, so they know it's out there in the public now.
Jeszcze mam wrażenie, że ktoś się zgłaszał, tak?
Bo tutaj troszeczkę o tym mówiliśmy, ale na razie mało o tym, jak osoby heteroseksualne mogą wspierać walkę o prawa osób LGBT. I tutaj jest zawsze taki problem, że u nas w Polsce jest takie określenie temat zastępczy. I na przykład prawa kobiet są tematem zastępczym,
prawa LGBT są tematem zastępczym. Zawsze w kampanii wyborczej jest powiedziane, no ale tutaj gospodarka, kryzys, ciągle jesteśmy w reformie, ciągle budujemy dopiero nasze państwo, a wy tutaj nam opowiadacie o jakichś takich ubocznych rzeczach, to jak my już tam to wszystko zbudujemy za jakieś 100 lat, to zajmiemy się tymi innymi rzeczami, a teraz nie róbcie z tego tematu, bo to nie jest takie ważne. No i ręce wtedy opadają. Co by wy byście powiedzieli w tej sytuacji?
Persistence is the key. Never give up, but you need to try and make them realize that members of the gay community and their supporters, co-workers, family and friends are members of the society that they're trying to build up. You are all included, and to willingly, knowingly eliminate a percentage of the population makes no sense to me whatsoever. You're excluding the rights of easily 10% of your population. Why would you do that? That makes no sense. Logic maybe is like too easy, so sometimes it doesn't work, but I don't really understand I don't understand the thought process of them saying it's an unimportant or substitute thing to discuss, because it's the rights of easily 10% of your population. And to just discredit them and push them to the side makes no sense if you want to build a complete, successful society.
In an economic power, remember 10% of your society, just like the United States, when the gay community and their supporters decides to boycott a product, they feel it. They become an economic power. And it has helped these corporations to change their policies towards sexual orientation and gender identity to make it all-inclusive and to allow partner benefits, gay or straight. But before they didn't have that. So you can become a power economically by just getting together and saying such and such, Coca-Cola is bad. They do not support us. We will not drink Coca-Cola.
But that's not the case.
You're going to hurt her. But as an example, so that's another way of getting the power that you need, and that power can also be turned into campaign dollars for your candidates in the same method. So keep that in mind. There are different ways of achieving your goals, not just through votes, but through economics, through all the constituents saying, why? Let's not call it substitute, let's call it what it is. Let's get it out there. These are the words. And it's not homosexual, it's not queer. Those words are offensive.
Well, not really.
They are to me.
Just on the word queer, our generation has a problem with the word queer. It's the one word that makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. That is the one hate word my generation learned. Now, young people are trying to take the word back, queer, and make it work for them in LGBTQA, blah, 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 blah. And so it's important to some. I can't use it. I can't do it. I still feel like my mother slapping my hand saying, we don't use that word. So it's not, to this generation it's bad, to younger generation, not so much. Not so much.
They were saying, it's, you're so gay in the States, you're so gay, not realizing it was offensive. So a lot of places start saying, okay, you're so Dennis, you're so Judy. And then they start realizing what they say. And they start changing. So again, apparently I'm old and a geezer and I didn't know that that's an okay word anymore.
Proszę Państwa, Państwa, mamy jeszcze dwa filmiki, tak? Dwa filmiki, które możemy Państwu puścić, ale zanim to się odbędzie, to jeszcze chciałbym zapytać o Wasze opaski. Na rękach macie fioletowe opaski. Co one oznaczają?
The wristband is the foundation wristband. It has our logo, Erase Hate. On the other side is one of our two web pages, matthewshepard.org. We have two web pages. We have the organizational one, and we have one called Matthew's Place that you can get either through this one or just by typing in Matthew's Place. It's basically information for kids and their families. Kids who are questioning, not sure what's going on, or their families aren't. These are available outside the door, so please take one. And if there are any left after everybody gets one, take more. But the color purple, Judy wanted purple before purple became the in color. And it's a unique color, so we always get asked about it. And then we can talk about what this is and what it means and what it stands for. And it gets the conversation going. Again, it allows us to tell our story. And it's something that you can use to tell your story. Either this one or you come up with your own wristbands for your groups to get the story out there and educate everybody. So that's what the wristbands are. And I keep playing with this one here. So.
Dziękujemy Wam bardzo. Ja myślę, że jeśli ktoś jeszcze ma jakieś pytanie do Judy albo Dennisa, to chyba będzie jeszcze możliwość zadania, chociaż już nie publicznie, nie na tym oficjalnym spotkaniu, ale gdzieś tam w kuluarach. Czy mamy gotowe filmiki, tak? Puszczamy filmiki?
It's been more than 10 years since I lost my son Matthew to senseless hate violence. Since then, thousands of others have been attacked simply because of who they are. People like Angie Zapata, who on a summer night in Greeley, Colorado, was bludgeoned to death with a fire extinguisher because she was transgender. Or Billy Ray Johnson, a mentally disabled man from Texas, who was taken to a party, ridiculed, knocked unconscious, and then dumped by the side of the road. Or Luis Ramirez. He was walking home to his family in Shenandoah, Pennsylvania, when a group of young men yelling racial and ethnic epithets beat him to death. Or men like Sean Kennedy and Ryan Skipper, who, like my son, were murdered because they were gay. 10 years of calls for the federal government to take action. 10 years of waiting. Tens of thousands more victims. No mother should have to go through what I have. Congress is considering updating our federal hate crime laws to help prosecute these horrible acts. We've come so close to passing this before and fallen just short. I ask that you join me in taking action today. Prove that love conquers hate.